Buenas noches from Hagutnia. Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. appeared in court today for his magistrate's hearing. How did this convicted child serial rapist get back into our community? Kandit News investigative reporter Johnny Rosario has more on this.
Back in the mid-1990s, girls were being kidnapped at bus stops across the island. The first victims were raped and released. But then the suspect started escalating his crimes. The girls were kidnapped, raped, and then beaten. Eventually, the police captured Paul Santos Mofnis Jr., and then he confessed to other rapes and beatings the police were not even aware of. In 1999, Mofnis was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, 2 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, and 2 counts of kidnapping. His victims included a 13-year-old girl, 2 girls both aged 14, and an 18-year-old. He was sentenced to 27 years in prison. Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. had served just 18 years of his 27-year sentence when he appeared before Parole Board Chairwoman Michelle Hope Titano, his first parole appearance ever, and asked to get out of prison early. Kandit News Today interviewed Parole Board Chairwoman Michelle Hope Titano.
Did you hear about the kidnapping and arrest involving?
I did.
Okay. And do you remember Paul Mofnis?
Yes.
Okay.
I know him.
Okay, so what happened at the parole meeting then? Why did you guys decide to grant his parole?
Well, usually when we grant parole, we see some good things in an individual, and we see the reports are good, and we interview folks, and if we see that they've done a good job and they've made some changes, we grant them. And of course, when we grant people parole, then we want them to be successful. So for a while, he was successful through his parole term, and we can't guarantee people. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee and know what people are going to do or not going to do. We do our best as a board to look at all sides.
Michelle Hope Titano heard from both sides indeed. His wife, Perseveranda Mofnis, whom he married while he was incarcerated, appeared at the hearing for her husband, as did his 2 brothers and a nephew. But Ms. Titano and the other members also heard from one of the victims. This victim now lives in the States and has obtained her master's degree in criminal justice, driven by her need to help others and ensure the laws are enforced to protect victims. Although living now in the States, she was interviewed by parole officers and their report was submitted to each and every board member. In it, the victim begged parole board members not to release him. She warned them that he has a mental issue and that he is a danger to the community. The victim also had family members appear at the parole hearing. One of her cousins testified against his release and warned board members that if they release Paul Santos Mofnis Jr., he will do the same exact thing to other girls. They were warned that he was a serial rapist and could not stop. Despite pleas from one of the victims and their family members to deny his parole, warnings that he would attack and rape again, the parole board ignored them and set Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. free. On February 27, 2014, parole board members granted parole to Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. If parole had been denied, he would still be in prison. Instead, released in 2014, and then he had to serve his court-ordered 5 years of special parole. He went back to the parole board on July 2nd of last year and asked for early discharge from his 5 years. Michelle Hope Titano and her fellow board members granted this request as well. So as of July 2018, Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. was a free man, no longer having to report into parole.
I'm saddened that happened. I'm really saddened. It breaks my heart because he seemed to be doing well. And for him to do that, that hurt.
But Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. was not doing well, according to court documents. He approached a 10-year-old girl last Thursday morning as she was walking to her bus stop near the Pizza Hut in Tamuning behind Docomo. He pretended to be asking for directions to Tamuning Elementary School and then forced her into his car and drove her to a parking lot across the Tamuning McDonald's. He pointed a gun at the 10-year-old girl, told her to get into the back seat and remove her clothes. Then he raped her, performed sex acts on the child. She was screaming and crying and asked to be let go. So he drove her to the school, into Munning, and dropped her off. Police responded at 7:40 a.m. On Saturday, police took Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. into custody. And according to court documents released today, Mofnis told them, quote, "Sexually assaulting female minors is an addiction of his and he can't resist," end quote. Parole Board Chairwoman Michelle Hope Titano admitted to Kandit News that they knew he was a predator, a serial rapist who preys on children.
Did the parole board understand at the time that the parole board granted his parole request? Did the parole board understand that he is a serial rapist? A serial child rapist?
Well, we knew we had the investigative report shows that, and it kind of, again, I can't go back to that date, but we have that information and we really just make the best decision holistically, and we always, of course, want to make sure that the public is safe, and the public was safe during the time of his parole.
But clearly, the community was not safe, most especially the 10-year-old girl who was abducted at gunpoint and raped.
Do you regret your decision?
Well, for the first, while he was on parole, he was fine, sir. So, and so.
But
okay,
he just abducted a girl.
Well, I feel badly. I'm praying. I've been praying since I heard, and I'm very, again, saddened. I'm really saddened. Why you don't know. You don't know how it affects us on the board when something like this happens.
I think, Michelle, you don't know how this affects the parents of that girl.
Oh no, you know what? I feel badly for that. But again, it's like, man. And then I'm thinking, what is she out doing at 6? What was she out doing at 6 o'clock? Was she going to the school? Do they get out that early? Do they go meet
Yes,
the buses
she
that
went.
early?
She was walking
Anyway.
to the bus stop. He's the bus stop rapist, Miss Tyson.
Well,
He was
that
walking.
the board choice.
Why are you blaming the victim?
Paul Santos Mofnis Jr. appeared for his magistrate's hearing this afternoon before Judge Bordalio, who set bail at $250,000, which was the amount requested by prosecution. A preliminary hearing date has been set for April 25th at 4 p.m. For Kandit News, I'm Johnny Rosario.
Coming up shortly on Troy Torres Live, we will play that interview with Michelle Hope Titano, talk to some experts, and recap a heartbreaking interview that we had with a family member of one of the victims from 1995. Tonight, Kandit News brings you A Monster in Our Midst. Stay tuned.